Combat is integral to old school RuneScape, and for most players, it's going to end up being most of what you do in-game. Whether you have your eyes set on defeating the newest boss and getting your hands on the latest and greatest gear, or if you're looking to just smoke some nerds in PvP, you're going to have to train those combat stats up. In this video, I want to lay down some basic framework to guide you in the right direction when training your combat skills. This is going to be a basic video for mains. If you're making a restricted account or some type of snowflake build, you already know what you're doing. The first thing I want to say before we dive into it is that you should not be sticking to this guide as gospel. One of the beauties of this game is that there's so many different ways to play it, and if you want to do something differently, you should go do that. RuneScape is just a video game, and if you're not maximizing how much fun you're having, you should hit that logout button and go do something else. First, let's go over the basics. Melee is divided into the attack, strength, and defense skills, and all of the different combat skills, including mage and range, all train hit points passively. Raising your attack level will make your attacks more accurate and oftentimes unlock new weaponry for you. Raising your strength level will raise your max hit, effectively allowing you to hit higher, and raising your defense will make enemies less likely to hit you, but it does not impact how high they hit. And you probably guessed it, but raising your hit points level will give you more hit points. The way you gain experience in all combat skills is by doing damage to enemies. Every damage that you do to an enemy is worth 4 experience in a combat skill and 1.33 hit points experience. So if I hit an enemy for 10 damage, I should expect 40 combat experience and 13.3 hit points experience. With this being said, the best way to get more experience is by doing more damage per second, or DPS. More on that in a minute. To train a different combat skill, attack, strength, or defense, you need to select the attack style in your combat options menu. You can hover over the different attacks you see here to see what skill those attacks will train. Usually the top left one is going to be attack, the middle options are strength or controlled, and the final options are usually defensive. Now let's talk about your equipment. It's going to be easier to decide what equipment to use if you actually know what it does and why we're choosing it. Attack bonuses. This first section that we're looking at right now, these are bonuses that impact our accuracy with a specific style. If we go back and remember in that last section when we were hovering over our weapons in the weapon menu, the interface not only told us what melee skill we would be training with that attack style, but it also told us which attack style it was going to be using, either stab, slash, or crush. Then we have our defense bonuses. These are going to impact an enemy's ability to hit us with a specific attack style, the exact inverse of the attack section above. It's important to note that these only impact the odds of getting hit. They don't have any damage decreasing effect or anything like that. It might be a little bit too much information right now, but enemies you face are also going to have attack and defensive bonuses in different attack styles, meaning that you're going to have to choose gear that performs better against them. At this point, this isn't something that you're going to have to worry about. In our other bonuses section here, we have melee strength. This makes you hit higher numbers, and it's the single most important thing to prioritize when we're picking equipment. Range strength is the same thing, but for the range skill, you hit harder with it. It's the #1 priority for range gear as well. And then magic damage is a percentage multiplier for the max hit of spells, similar concept to the two above. Then this last one here, the prayer bonus, this one impacts how much prayer is drained. The higher your bonus, the slower your drain rate. The target specific section might be a little bit too much information right now, but there's a couple of items that give you bonuses against both undead monsters and slayer monsters. And the last thing on the list here is the weapon speed, which also somehow happens to be the most important thing, even though it's an afterthought down at the bottom. And to know why this matters so much, you have to understand how the game works. RuneScape runs on game ticks. There are 100 game ticks per minute. A tick is 0.6 seconds long. Every action in-game happens on a game tick. If you click something on tick 1, that action will happen the next tick on tick 2. Many things in-game have a cooldown that we can measure in an amount of game ticks. There's a cooldown in between each and every weapon hit, which is what we see in this value here on the equipment screen. Our weapon here that I have equipped is on a 4-tick attack cycle, meaning that there is 2.4 seconds in between each hit. This is going to be extremely important when we choose which equipment to use. Imagine that you have 2 weapons. One here is 4 ticks, the other one is 5 ticks, but all of the other stats are the same. The 4-tick weapon does 25% more damage than this 5-tick weapon, which equates to more than 25% more experience per hour. There's a couple other ways that we can increase our DPS and thus our experience per hour as well. That's going to be using potions that temporarily boost our stats up, making us hit harder, more accurate, and give us more defense, and then also by using prayers, which give a percentage increase to our attack strength and defense bonuses. One final note before we talk about going from level 3 to 126, not all 3 melee styles are created equal. Defense is always going to be secondary to offense. Killing a monster faster in RuneScape is going to make you take much less damage than if the monster was still alive, regardless of your defense bonus. And I'm not saying that defense doesn't matter, because it definitely does. I'm just saying that it matters less than the other two. Attack is really good because it's the primary skill for giving you access to new weaponry. Most of the monsters that we're going to be training against do have really low defense though, so attack will be a lower priority than strength, as hitting bigger numbers is always going to contribute more to your DPS than being more accurate. You were born into this world a precious little level 3 with level 1 in all of your stats except for hit points. For hit points, you got 10 of those things, which is important so chickens don't one-hit you right off the rip. While most people do head to those chickens or the nearby goblins to get their first few levels, your best experience at the start of the game is going to be through questing, specifically the Waterfall quest. Completing this quest gives a reward which instantly gives you the experience needed to get 30 attack and 30 strength. This allows you to skip a ton of those really early levels which are just extremely slow compared to later on. The monsters in this quest can bulk you pretty hard, so it would be advantageous to do the witch's house beforehand. This gives you some quick HP experience. I recommend 13 magic for this quest. The wiki has a good list of quests which give you combat experience. I'll link them down below. For this video, I'll assume that you just did the witch's house and the waterfall quest. By all means, feel free to dork around, kill some goblins and some chickens and stuff. Just get yourself to around 20 attack and strength and then come back to this guide. Now let's get you geared up. And I'm not going to be able to incorporate a full gear progression guide into this video, but I will try to give you some notable tips and a few different setups along the way. For a more comprehensive video on what gear to get and when, I'll link one down in the description below. Like I said before, we're going to want to maximize our strength bonus, get yourself an adamant scimitar and a strength amulet. Some basic armor depending on your current defense level. Climbing boots are a very cheap boot that offers a good strength bonus. The combat bracelet is going to be your best in slot glove slot until you do recipe for disaster for the gloves. And then a book of war, the Bandos book, is going to be the cheapest offhand that gives you strength bonus at this level, but it does require some quests, so just use a cheap shield if you don't have it yet. You likely don't have the money for a berserker ring at this point, and the off chance you do, get one, imbue that bad boy. If not, you could use an explorer's ring or just leave that slot open for now. Then for our ammo slot, you're just going to want to pick up a cheap blessing off the Grand Exchange. They're like 10 to 15k and they give you +1 prayer bonus. Okay, back to our levels at hand. You have 30 attack, 30 strength, 1 defense, and some type of HP level. At this level, you have some options of stuff to kill, but the option that you should do is sand or ammonite crabs. I just unlocked the ammonite ones early. The quests are essential for later on in the account progression, and increased HP on these crabs and the lower competition for a training spot is definitely going to be worth it for you. Personally, I love Slayer, but at this combat level, it's going to be really tedious. I would recommend getting higher combat stats before diving into this unless you really want to. And at this level, you probably don't have the quests yet to get Nightmare Zone running smoothly, so crabs it is. Crabs are a good training spot for several reasons. The crabs will remain aggressive to you for 10 minutes, which is great because you can leave on auto retaliate and pay little to no attention to them until you have to leave the area and reset the aggression. They have little to no defense, so you'll be extremely accurate, and they have a ton of HP, which means that you can hit the same crab for a while, minimizing downtime. One plugin that I do recommend getting for crabs is the NPC aggression timer. This will show you the lines on the ground where you need to run past in order to reset the 10 minutes of aggression for the crabs. All you need to do is pass the line and then return to your spot, and then you should just be good to go. When you return, if somebody's in your spot, they're almost definitely going to start to try to gaslight you, tell you something like they've been there for 14 hours straight, you're crashing them, they're going to report you, and you're going to get banned. None of this is true. Say something about their mother and continue using that spot, or just find a different one. At these lower levels, you want to find a spot that has 2 crabs. There's some spots with 3 crabs, but they have a lot more competition, and you don't have enough DPS to kill the 2 crabs before the 3rd one spawns anyways, so it doesn't really make sense for you to compete for one anyways, since you're going to max out your experience per hour on a 2 crab spot. For your inventory, I recommend bringing at least super strength potions if you can afford them. Super attacks are good as well since they're incredibly cheap. For these early levels, I recommend bringing some of the next equipment that you're going to be upgrading to as well. The levels, they go just super fast at the start here, and it's going to be worth not having to run all the way back to the bank and come back with the next equipment that you're using. For this example, I recommend bringing like up to mithril armor and a rune scimitar at least. Killing the crabs, super duper simple. Find a spot with 2 crabs, position yourself in between them so that they can both spawn on you when they respawn, and then just auto retaliate the crabs to death. I recommend getting your strength up to 40 first, then your attack up to 40 so you can equip that rune scimitar, and then your defense up to 20 in order to equip your mithril set that you brought. This should allow you to take far less damage from the crabs, making you have to bank to get more food less often. Additionally, if you have more GP than the average person at this level, the Brine Saber is slightly better than the rune scimitar but costs nearly 40 times as much. Continue training with your scimitar or your Brine Saber until you have 50 strength, and then I would even this out to 50 attack so we can equip our next weapon. At these stats, you have access to the Granite Hammer as your new best in slot weapon. It is nearly 600k as of making this video. If you can't afford one, just keep on using your scimitar and get 55 attack next, because at 55 attack, you unlock the Sulfur Blades, which is going to increase your strength bonus from the scimitar by nearly 50%, and they only cost like 30 to 50,000 gold. For this stage, I recommend making your goal to get 40 defense and 60 attack and strength. 40 defense allows you to wear rune armor and the fighter's torch So 45 if you want to do a little bit of extra credit will allow you to wear the Berserker helm, and then 60 attack will unlock dragon weaponry. This will allow you to start using the dragon scimitar, which will be your bread and butter training weapon for a long time. And finally, get yourself 65 attack and strength so that you can go and get all the defenders at the Warriors Guild. At this point of your account progression, you have pretty decent DPS going on, so a lot of the methods that we skipped over in the beginning of the video are now viable to you. Your first option would be Slayer. This is my favorite way to train combat personally, and if you're an Iron at this point, you basically have to. You're gonna get slower experience per hour on average than Crabs or the Nightmare Zone, but training through Slayer can be very worthwhile. You're gonna kill two birds with one stone by leveling both Combat and Slayer at the same time. The Black Mask and the Slayer helm that is made from the Black Mask gives you a massive 16.67% attack and strength bonus to your task, and also helps with mage and range down the road. Slayer also forces you to kill a bunch of different monsters, which keeps things fresh instead of just looking at crabs for like 30 hours straight. Slayer will also allow you to kill bosses with the Black Mask effect, which can be very good for farming GP later on. To train the Slayer skill, you have to kill monsters that are assigned to you by a Slayer Master. They're going to give you a monster and then a quantity to kill. The experience granted is equal to 1 experience per HP of the monster, or roughly 1/4 of the combat experience that you're going to receive. But how should you pick a master? To pick one, just use the best one you have access to. Pretty simple. I recommend avoiding Konar, as Konar also chooses where you have to kill the monster, and it's almost always way shittier than the place that you actually want to go. The Slayer skill is pretty complex, so I can't really cover any more of it in depth in this guide, but I do have a full guide for the Slayer skill that I will link down in the description below for you. And the second method, which I personally despise, offers some of the best melee training experience in the game. And of course, I'm talking about the Nightmare Zone. The concept is that you sign up for a dream. This dream allows you to select bosses from quests that you've completed in the past, and then fight them 4 at a time in an arena. This is one of the best methods for several reasons. The monsters here, they never lose aggro, which makes this extremely AFK. You get overload potions, which boost all of your stats up over what they normally would be, and you get the absorption potions, which save you money as you don't have to use food here. Like with the Slayer section, the Nightmare Zone's a little bit more complex when it comes to setting it up, but I'll try to give you a quick rundown and a few different setups. For your first few runs, you want to optimize for points instead of experience. This will make it so that you can buy overloads and absorption potions, which are going to be really important for maximizing our experience later on. For this, you want to do a hard rumble with as many melee-only bosses as you can. This way, you can protect from melee, block all incoming damage, and rack up some points. Once you do get a few absorptions, I recommend turning on all the Dream Mentor and Desert Treasure bosses if you do have those quests done. If you don't, just ignore this. Enabling those bosses just give you an absolute shitload of points, so it's definitely worth dealing with them, even though they're kind of ids. I expect at first for your setup to look something like this. Everybody's going to be at a different level. It's hard to really tell. I strongly recommend getting your untradables out of the way, though. What I mean by this is the Fire Cape, Fighter's Torso, Barrow's Gloves, Dragon Defender. These are all free and extremely powerful upgrades. It's at this point, too, where it makes sense for you to have enough GP to get yourself an Amulet of Fury and a Berserker Ring. If you have more money, feel free to get better gear, but this is also important because you can use the points which you're getting from the Nightmare Zone to imbue that Berserker Ring. Once you have some points, you can set up a more experience-focused stream instead of one that focuses on points, or you could do a little combination of the both, but you're gonna have to figure out that on your own. The easiest one is gonna be a normal rumble with 5 easy melee bosses. Here's the bosses that the wiki suggests. Depending on what quests you have done, you might have to use different ones. From here on, it's super simple. Just go in, hit your overload, use a rock cake or a locator orb to lower down your HP to 1, and then drink your absorption pots. These will absorb 1 damage per absorption point, which is why it's important to keep your HP low, since each hit will only do 1 damage to you. Slap on auto retaliate and keep on hitting, guys. You can double tap your rapid heal to keep your HP at 1, but realistically, if you're AFKing hard enough, as you should be, you're just going to want to relower your HP from time to time. If you're really enjoying this method, I recommend building your defense to level 60 if it's not there already, and do an Obby Warrior build. With full Obsidian and the Berserker Necklace, you're going to do an extra 30% damage with Obby weapons, which ends up giving some of the fastest experience rates that you can get at this level. Eventually, the Darox armor set from the Barrows brothers is going to be your best in slot for the Nightmare Zone, but for DH to be really effective, you need higher HP since it scales with the amount of HP that you're missing, so I wouldn't really worry about this until your account is in the later stages with at least 92 hit points. Another really good option, and actually the best option at these lower levels, is to kill Sulfur Naguas. These came into the game with Varlamore, more specifically the Perilous Moons encounter. These do require 48 Slayer to kill, so make sure that you get that before coming here, but let me explain to you why these are so good. Sulfur Naguas are good due to a new mechanic called Flat Armor. They have a a -4 flat armor rating, which means that if you roll a successful hit against them, you're going to do 4 extra damage. If you have the full Blood Moon set with the maracas, you can get upwards of 170,000 experience per hour in your desired combat skill, and even without this, you're going to be getting way more experience per hour than any other method at this level. There's nothing preventing you from bringing your own pots and prayer, but within the Moons minigame, you can make both of these, and I strongly recommend doing so. The one downside over something like Nightmare Zone or Crabs is that this is less AFK, but to be perfectly honest with you, it's still super AFK. You just have to watch your prayer a little bit more. If I had to train up a new account and I wanted to rush my combat stats, I would 100% be doing it here over any of the other methods. Quick little rundown on the method: gear up in your best strength boosting gear with your sulfur blades, make some potions, catch and cook some fish, auto retaliate on, and just AFK the shit out of them. They do have a special attack that drains your prayer. You can step away to avoid it, but personally, I would just AFK harder and bulldoze through this. Just don't worry about it. Make sure to vaguely pay attention to your prayer and you'll be just fine. There's one last method that I think deserves a mention, even though it's not really the best in any of the categories that we've talked about before. Behold, Scurius the Rat King. Scurius is really good experience because you can use rat bone weapons against him. They have boosted damage versus rats, which Scurius is one of, which according to the wiki can net you around 100,000 experience per hour at base 70s. Always take wiki rates with a massive grain of salt, and you're probably going to suffer a little bit first because you do have to get this untradeable drop before you can actually use it, but this is super worthwhile. Scurius is going to outperform both Crabs and the Nightmare Zone, but you're going to have to pay a lot more attention than any of the other methods in this video. Scurius is a boss encounter. You're going to have to deal with several different game mechanics, change your prayer, move to avoid falling debris, and kill his minions. Sweet, so those are the main training methods in the game. Personally, I really like those Naguas. They get kind of boring though, so if I had to do everything over, I'd switch it up and do a lot of Slayer myself. Anyways, in order to train your stats up to the next level here, it's really going to depend on what your stats currently are, what your goals are in game, what gear you have access to. So it's really not going to look the same for all of you. The one thing that you do want to keep in mind is that you do want to have your strength outpacing your attack and defense, and then probably your attack as your second highest, and then defense is the lowest, but ultimately it is up to you. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, if this was helpful to you, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more RuneScape content, and I will see you in the next one.